all women are different, but they are all women, this video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children, men will die for their wives and children, and God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts, the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy, and the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminismus Delendis 8. Abolishing Racism and Rewriting the Social Narrative. Written by Connie Riker. Available now. Links in description. Fritzlin, the user wants me to continue from the partial answer, which is thinking through the title. The partial answer ends with title and a blank line, so I need to write the actual title and subtitle. The instructions: one viral Substack title and subtitle separated by exactly 1 colon in the whole output. No colon inside title or subtitle, only 1 colon between them. Then, I once believed rest was the natural reward for labor, a biological rhythm that restored the body for the next day's work. But the new ideology has reframed exhaustion as a political injury, a structural wound inflicted by patriarchal capitalism, and its compassionate goal is to soothe the weary soul of the female subject through revolutionary inaction. This compassion enters the welfare system, where the old requirement of an active job search is inverted into a mandate for restorative care. The state now subsidizes inactivity for women, treating fatigue as a permanent disability that exempts them from effort, while penalizing men for the very energy that builds and sustains civilization. This severance from natural law is total. The natural order binds labor to sustenance and rest to recovery. But here the link is snapped, and rest becomes a right of identity rather than a reward for contribution. Men feel this as profound moral vertigo, for their ancient duty to provide is recast as exploitation, their vitality recoded as a resource to be drained for others' leisure. The rules of effort and reward that organized human life since the first plow broke soil are silently rewritten, and the provider stands accused by the fact of his own exertion. Thus, the theory marinades the female subject in grievance until she becomes indigestible to the male provider. And the natural rhythm of work and rest is weaponized into a permanent claim against male duty itself. We are left to ask, how did compassion become the engine of such inversion? Theory under examination. Why rest is political stated goal. To reframe biological and social fatigue not as a natural limit of human energy or a personal failing, but as a structural injury inflicted by patriarchal capitalism, thereby justifying the withdrawal of labor, compliance, and emotional availability as acts of revolutionary defiance. Institutional entry point. The active job search requirement is inverted into a restorative care mandate where the state subsidizes inactivity for women while penalizing men for excess energy, treating female exhaustion as a permanent disability and male vitality as a resource to be drained. Welfare eligibility rule, inspiration year 1833, natural law origin point. The natural order dictates that labor is the price of sustenance and rest is the recovery from labor. The family is the unit of production and reproduction, where men provide through effort and women provide through gestation and nurture. Rest is a physiological necessity, not a political statement. Overall vector size. 8 10 minus The theory marinades the female subject in her own grievance until she becomes indigestible to the male provider, turning the natural rhythm of work and rest into a weaponized claim against the very concept of male duty in version vector quick map. The marinade of grievance, truth, and proportionality. Subjective experience elevated to objective structural fact 9/10. Fallacy, equivocation between tiredness, physiological, and oppression, political. Vice, ressentiment, and sloth disguised as virtue. Way home, distinguish between fatigue caused by overwork, which requires rest, and fatigue caused by under-responsibility, which requires discipline. Restore the link between effort and reward. The sexualization of inactivity, sex realism, and biological complementarity, sex into self-declaration. Rest is no longer a biological need, but a gendered performance 8/10. Fallacy, false cause, assuming all female rest is a political act against male dominance. Vice, pride and lust for control, control over male resources. Way home, apply the same standard of fitness for duty to both sexes. Rest is earned by contribution, not declared by identity. The marination of time, order, and stewardship. Time as a resource to be consumed rather than a medium for action 7/10. Fallacy, appeal to emotion. I feel tired, therefore the system is broken. Vice, envy of male agency and resentment of given order. Way home, restore the expectation of competence. Rest is a pause in service, not a withdrawal from it. Hold all parents to the same standard of active care. Corollaries, the devaluation of male labor as just work rather than sacrifice. The rise of the professional victim class, sustained by state subsidies. A decline in overall productivity as rest becomes the default state. The erosion of male agency as men are forced to support female inactivity. The fragmentation of the family as fathers are seen as sources of drain rather than partners. The medicalization of normal female emotions as political trauma. The rise of care work as a political identity rather than a job. The decline of marriage as men opt out of the exhausting provider role. The growth of the welfare state as a mechanism for managing female fatigue. The loss of inherited culture as women prioritize self-care over tradition. Evil consequences, abortion. The right to rest extends to the womb, framing pregnancy as a political burden to be removed. Depopulation. Women choose rest over reproduction, leading to a collapse in birth rates. Family breakdown. Fathers are marginalized as providers rather than partners, leading to divorce and fatherlessness. Miseducation. Schools prioritize comfort over challenge, producing a generation of fragile, exhausted students. Conquest. A society of resting women and drained men is vulnerable to more coherent, energetic civilizations. Loss of inherited culture. Tradition is seen as exhausting and is discarded in favor of self-care. Institutional corruption. Welfare and HR departments expand to manage the fatigue of the population. Demoralization. Men lose their sense of purpose as their labor is devalued and their energy is taxed. Replacement of living tradition with bureaucracy. The state becomes the mother that soothes the exhausted citizen. Spiritual death. The soul is reduced to a battery that needs recharging, rather than a will that needs exercising. Theory, explanation, and natural law critique. Why rest is political is the most dangerous sentence nobody laughed at. What the theory claims to want, the doctrine arrives dressed in the soft language of wellness and self-care. Rest is political. So reads the manifesto tattooed on 1,000 Instagram bios, printed on pastel posters in university counseling offices, whispered in HR training rooms where nobody is permitted to laugh. Here is the theory's clean face, as its advocates present it. Fatigue is not merely personal. When a woman is exhausted, the cause is not her schedule, her choices, her sleep hygiene, or her circumstances. The cause is structural. Patriarchal capitalism has drained her. The system extracts her labor, her emotional availability, her reproductive capacity, her beauty, her patience, her silence, then offers her a candle and a bubble bath and calls it equality. To rest, therefore, is to resist. To withdraw your energy is to strike a blow against the machine. Sitting still becomes insurgency. Sleeping becomes solidarity. The slogan is seductive because the feeling it names is real. Everyone is tired. The theory takes that universal sigh and forges it into a weapon. The stated goal is justice. The stated mechanism is reframing, teaching the exhausted subject to understand her fatigue not as biology or circumstance, but as injury inflicted by a system that runs on her depletion. Once the injury is named, the remedy follows: withdrawal from labor, from compliance, from emotional availability, from the expectations of partnership, motherhood, contribution, duty. The remedy is rest, and rest is recast as a revolutionary act, a refusal to participate in one's own exploitation. Listen carefully to what the slogan actually does. It does not say, "You are tired, and that is human." It says, "You are tired, and that proves the world is unjust." The leap from feeling to indictment is performed so smoothly that you barely notice the chasm you crossed, but the chasm is the entire project. Without the chasm, the slogan is a nap. With it, the slogan is a political theology, and a demanding, unforgiving, expansionary one. How it enters the institution. Theories do not float, they need flesh. They need paycheckwas, they need offices with nameplates. The welfare eligibility rule is the first docking station. Consider the architecture of social assistance. Historically, to receive state support, you had to demonstrate either incapacity or active job seeking. The standard was the same regardless of who you were. You proved need, you proved effort. The transaction was impersonal, which is the only way a bureaucracy can remain just, by treating persons as persons, not as categories. The inversion enters as a modification. Under pressure from advocacy groups steeped in standpoint epistemology, the standard differentiates by identity. A woman's self-reported burnout is treated as prima facie evidence of systemic harm. No documentation of specific abuse. No identification of a specific structural barrier. The assertion of fatigue becomes the proof of oppression. Meanwhile, a man presenting the identical symptom, exhaustion, discouragement, the feeling that the world is using him up, is assessed for motivation, flagged for non-compliance, and told to apply to 50 more employers by Friday. The HR department is the second vector. Under the banner of wellness and mental health awareness, policies are quietly rewritten to accommodate caregiver fatigue as a category that justifies reduced duties, remote work, or indefinite leave, selectively available, selectively enforced. A woman who declares she is drained receives accommodation forms. A man who mentions stress is flagged as a performance risk. The same workplace that celebrates vulnerability as courage for one employee treats it as liability for another. The standard is not fitness for duty. The standard is identity. The University Counseling Center is the third. Here, the theory is not policy but catechesis. A student arrives tired and stressed, as students have been since Bologna and Oxford first opened their doors. The counselor does not ask about sleep, nutrition, course load, or time management. The counselor asks about systemic stressors. The student is handed a vocabulary that converts every difficulty into an indictment and every setback into a verdict on civilization itself. The student does not leave with a plan. She leaves with an ideology. The natural law origin point, before the corruption, the principle. Rest is real. The body tires, the mind dulls, the spirit flags. This is not oppression. This is physics meeting biology, meeting morality. The Sabbath exists because the Creator designed the creature with limits, and then blessed the recognition of those limits. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. The rhythm is older than any code. It is written into muscle and bone, into the oscillation of waking and sleeping, into the harvest that follows the plowing and the famine that follows the sloth. Labor is the price of sustenance. This is not cruelty. It is the grammar of a world that rewards effort because effort is how finite beings participate in the sustaining of life. By the sweat of your face you shall eat bread is not a curse to be repealed by a committee. It is the structure of reality after the fall, and no amount of therapeutic language will repeal it. Even paradise required tending. The garden was placed in the man's hands, to work it and keep it before any serpent spoke. The family is the natural unit within which labor and rest find their meaning. Man and woman are complementary, different in function. Equal in dignity, ordered toward shared ends. He tends the field, she tends the hearth. Both labor, both rest. The infant does not care which parent is more politically conscious. The child requires presence, provision, and protection, and these are not delivered by ideology, but by effort, by sacrifice, by the daily disciplines that no slogan can replace. Rest, in this order, is the recovery from labor in service of further labor. It is the pause between notes that gives music its shape. It is not the absence of obligation. It is the renewal of strength for obligation. A man who rests after building all day is following nature. A man who refuses to build because resting is resistance is not resting, he is rotting. This is the origin point. Labor, rest, family, complementarity, duty, renewal. Nothing here is oppression, everything here is life. The satanic inversion vectors, Satan does not create, he inverts. He takes the good, the true, and the beautiful, and turns them upside down, not by destroying them, but by preserving the form while draining the substance. The word remains, the meaning reverses. This is the method of every heresy and every revolution that has ever eaten its own children. Three vectors perform this inversion. Vector I, the marinade of grievance, natural law anchor, truth and proportionality. The inversion, subjective experience, is elevated to objective structural fact. I feel tired becomes the system is oppressive. No mechanism is demonstrated, no counterfactual is entertained. The feeling is the proof, and the proof is unfalsifiable because anyone who questions it is accused of denying lived experience, which is itself recast as a form of violence. Consider the logic. Premise 1, I am exhausted. Premise 2, exhaustion is unpleasant. Conclusion, therefore, a system has unjustly injured me. The syllogism is invalid. The conclusion does not follow. The feeling of fatigue is equally compatible with overwork, which might indicate injustice, under responsibility, which would indicate personal failure, poor health, which would indicate biology, or the simple human condition, which indicates nothing political at all. The theory selects one interpretation and forbids the others. This is not analysis. It is marinade. The subject is soaked in grievance until every cell absorbs the flavor of resentment, until fatigue itself becomes indistinguishable from testimony of injustice. The institutional effect is devastating. A welfare caseworker receives a complaint. I feel drained. Under natural law, the caseworker would investigate drained by what? Is there abuse? Is there illness? Is there a gap between effort and reward that can be remedied? Under the inversion, the caseworker skips all of that. The complaint is the evidence. The system is on trial. The remedy is transfer, money from the taxpayer, accommodation from the employer, silence from the man, because the feeling itself has been declared a verdict. Etymology serves truth. Marinade from the Italian marinara, to pickle in brine. The noun is culinary, the function is chemical. You submerge the substance in acid and salt until it takes on the character of the solution. The meat does not remain itself, it becomes the marinade. The theory does not describe the exhaustion. It marinates the exhausted in accusation until they can no longer distinguish tiredness from testimony, biology from betrayal, the human condition from the civil indictment. Path home, distinguish between fatigue caused by overwork, which requires rest, and fatigue caused by under-responsibility, which requires discipline. Restore the link between effort and reward. Truth before narrative. Vector 2. The sexualization of inactivity, natural law anchor, sex realism and biological complementarity. The inversion, rest is decoupled from biology and recoupled to identity. What was shared metabolism, all humans tire, all humans sleep, becomes a gendered performance. Female rest is political, male rest is suspect. Female withdrawal is resistance, male withdrawal is negligence. The same act is interpreted by the identity of the actor, not by the nature of the act. The dialectic is crudely effective. Thesis, male labor. Antithesis, female rest. Synthesis, male taxation for female leisure. The resolution is presented as balance, but the mechanism is transfer. His energy becomes her entitlement, mediated by the state's machinery of redistribution. The state does not create rest. It creates obligation, a new obligation, layered atop the old, justified by a theory that calls the obligation justice. Examine the workplace consequences. HR policies develop a two-tier system. Caregiver fatigue becomes a protected category, selectively available, selectively enforced. A woman may declare herself emotionally unavailable and receive reduced duties, schedule modifications, or indefinite accommodation. A man who attempts the same declaration is flagged for performance management. The word burnout means one thing when a woman says it and another when a man says it. This is not equality. This is the enshrinement of inequality under the language of equity. Mirror test. Apply the rule to both sexes. If the theory is valid, it should work regardless of identity. If rest is resistance is true for a woman, it must be true for a man. But the theory never applies it symmetrically. Male rest is framed as abandonment. Female rest is framed as liberation. The asymmetry is the tell. This is not a universal ethic. It is a weapon aimed at a target, and the target is male obligation, not its reform, but its exploitation. Sex swap test. Imagine a father declaring that he will no longer provide because rest is political and his labor sustains patriarchal capitalism. The court would not celebrate his resistance. The court would garnish his wages and label him a deadbeat. Now reverse, a mother declares the same. The court asks what services she needs. The disparity reveals the doctrine's true function, not liberation from the system, but selective exemption from accountability within it. Path home. Apply the same standard of fitness for duty to both sexes. Rest is earned by contribution, not declared by identity. Complementarity means difference in the service of a shared end, not difference weaponized to excuse one party from the common burden. Vector 3. The marination of time. Natural law anchor, order and stewardship. The inversion time itself is redefined. No longer the medium in which action, growth, duty, and love unfold. Time becomes a resource to be consumed, and consumption becomes the highest good. Productivity is quietly replaced with presence. Effort is replaced with feeling. Showing up exhausted counts as much as building, teaching, defending, or providing. The substitution is never announced. It is smuggled through redefinition, then enforced by institutional default. The fallacy is appeal to emotion. I feel tired, therefore the system is broken, the feeling is real. The inference is deranged. A headache does not prove meningitis. Fatigue does not prove oppression. But the theory has already closed the loop. It has defined the system as oppressive, defined fatigue as evidence of oppression, and defined disagreement as proof of guilt. The circle is sealed. Nothing can enter. Nothing can correct. Time in this framework stops being the arena of virtue. The classical tradition understood time as the condition for the cultivation of excellence, the repeated practice of right action that builds character, family, community, and civilization. Aristotle's telos, Aquinas' habits, the craftsman's apprenticeship, the father's daily provision all require time as the medium of becoming. The inversion drains time of this purpose. Time becomes something to claim rather than something to use. Presence replaces productivity. Feeling replaces doing. The person who sits still and declares herself healing is elevated above the person who works and builds and serves, because the former is performing the doctrine and the latter is merely living. Institutional effect: schools accept burnout as a valid excuse for academic non-performance. Selectively, of course, along the lines the theory has drawn. Courts accept maternal exhaustion as a mitigating factor for neglect, while holding fathers to strict, unbending standards of provision and presence. The double standard is not accidental. It is the theory's design specification. Path home: restore the expectation of competence. Rest is a pause in service, not a withdrawal from it. Hold all persons to the same standard of active contribution. Time is the medium of virtue. Do not surrender it to those who would marinate it in grievance until it dissolves. The corollaries and consequences. Every ideology reveals itself in its fruit. Christ's test is empirical. By their fruits you will know them. Let us audit the harvest, the devaluation of male labor. When rest is political, the labor that the resting party withdraws from is reframed as participation in oppression. The man who works, who lays pipe, writes code, drives trucks, pours concrete, patrols borders, fights fires, raises crops, raises children, is told that his effort is not sacrifice but privilege. His 12-hour shift is reclassified. It is no longer service, it is complicity. The language does not merely insult him, it erases him. He becomes a utility, the background infrastructure that makes the activists' resistance possible. Nobody thanks the grid, nobody mourns the lineman. The professionalization of grievance. A class emerges whose vocation is the management and expression of fatigue. They do not produce goods. They do not provide services. They produce testimony. They manage narratives. They attend conferences about their exhaustion and write papers about their depletion and apply for grants to study their own burnout. And the grants are funded by the taxation of the people still working. The professional victim is not an accident of the system. She is its logical product. If fatigue is evidence of injustice, then the fatigued are the prophets of the new order, and their income is tithes. The collapse of productivity as rest becomes the default, and overwork becomes suspect, output declines. This is not speculative. It is observable in every institution captured by the therapeutic ethic, universities where standards fall, agencies where missions drift, corporations where competence is subordinated to comfort. The cure offered for declining output is always the same. More accommodation, more flexibility, more sensitivity, which produces further decline, which produces demands for more accommodation. The spiral is not a bug. It is the engine, the erosion of male agency. Men are instructed that their labor is exploitation, their authority is domination, their provision is control, their presence is threat. They respond rationally, they withdraw. They opt out of marriage, fatherhood, career ambition, civic participation. The theory calls this toxic masculinity and prescribes more of the same poison that caused the symptom, the fragmentation of the family. Fathers are no longer partners but sources of drain. The marital covenant, mutual binding, ordered toward shared ends, is recharacterized as a labor contract in which the woman is always the exploited worker and the man is always the extracting boss. Divorce follows. Fatherlessness follows. The data on fatherlessness is not ambiguous. Every metric of child well-being, educational achievement, emotional stability, criminal involvement, substance abuse, suicide deteriorates in its absence. The theory does not care, because the theory is not interested in outcomes. It is interested in accusation. Depopulation, women choose rest over reproduction. Pregnancy is reframed as depletion. Childbirth as sacrifice imposed by the system. Motherhood as a patriarchal trap. Birth rates collapse below replacement across every society that adopts this framework. The civilization ages, shrinks, and imports replacements who do not share the framework, and who will not, because the framework is a luxury illness that only affluent societies can afford, and only briefly. Before the affluence runs out, conquest, a society of resting women and drained men, cannot defend itself. This is not metaphor. Throughout history, civilizations that lost the will to labor, to fight, to build, and to sacrifice have been replaced by civilizations that retained that will. Rome did not fall because the barbarians were stronger. Rome fell because Romans had forgotten why strength mattered. The inheritors of rest is political will not inherit anything. They will be inherited spiritual death. The soul is reduced to a battery requiring recharge. Virtue becomes self-care. Courage becomes boundary setting. Sacrifice becomes trauma. The human person shrinks to a consumer of comfort, and comfort without purpose is the slowest death, because it kills without warning, without pain, without the dignity of a wound received in battle. It simply drains and drains and drains until nothing remains but the marinade, the fallacies and vices that power the fall. The inversion is not intellectually respectable. It survives not because it is true, but because it is useful to the resentful, the envious, the slothful, and the controlling. Audit the mechanism, equivocation, the central fallacy. Tired means two things: Physiological fatigue, universal, remediable, proportionate to effort, and political oppression, selective, unfalsifiable, permanent. The theory uses the first meaning to establish sympathy, then silently switches to the second to extract concessions. The bait is your own experience of exhaustion. The switch is a political demand. When you discover the switch an object, you are told you are denying lived experience, which is itself the equivocation, round 2, false cause. The theory assumes what it must prove, that the fatigue experienced by the favored identity class is caused by systemic oppression, rather than by biology, circumstance, or personal choice. No counterfactual is offered. No alternative explanation is permitted. The cause is assigned by identity category, not demonstrated by evidence. A woman's fatigue is structural. A man's fatigue is personal. The same symptom, different diagnosis assigned before examination appeal to emotion. I feel tired, therefore the system is broken. The feeling is real, the inference does not follow. But the theory depends on the audience's inability or unwillingness to separate the two, to say, yes, you are tired, and yes, that is hard, and no, that does not prove what you claim it proves. The refusal to make that separation is not compassion. It is surrender, stolen concept. The theory employs concepts, justice, rights, dignity, oppression, that only make sense within a framework of natural law and moral order, while simultaneously denying that framework. You cannot invoke injustice without a standard of justice. You cannot cry oppression without a concept of legitimate order from which oppression deviates. The theory saws off the branch it sits on and calls the falling liberation. Resentment. Nietzsche's diagnosis. The slave morality that cannot create, so it condemns creation, cannot build, so it denounces building, cannot excel, so it abolishes excellence. The activist does not say, I will work harder. She says, work itself is the problem. She does not say, I will build something better. She says, building is exploitation. This is not a political program. It is a confession of inability dressed in the language of moral superiority. Sloth, Aquinas called acedia, the noonday demon, the spiritual torpor that refuses joy, refuses effort, refuses the good that requires labor. Sloth is not laziness alone. It is the hatred of the good, because the good demands something of you. Rest as resistance is sloth with a press agent, pride. The activist declares her subjective experience sovereign over objective reality. Her feeling outranks your evidence. Her fatigue constitutes proof that your civilization is evil. This is not humility. This is the primal sin, the declaration that the self is the measure of all things, that the voice inside is louder than the logos that ordered the cosmos. Will to control. Behind the soft language of care and healing, the mechanism is domination. The activist does not seek freedom from labor. She seeks command over another's labor. She does not seek to escape the system. She seeks to redirect the system's extraction toward her benefit on her terms without reciprocal obligation. The vocabulary is therapeutic. The grammar is tyrannical. The cultural revolution ratchet. The theory does not stop at the slogan. It never does. Once the principle is accepted, that fatigue is structural, that rest is resistance, that the tired are prophet and judge, the machinery engages. 10 steps, each hardening the last. Step 1. Redefine. Rest is detached from biology and reattached to politics. The dictionary entry is quietly rewritten. Rest no longer means recovery from labor. It means refusal of system. The redefinition is the revolution's first stroke, because whoever controls the definition controls the argument. Step 2. Institutionalize. Fatigue is classified as a protected condition in welfare and employment law, not clinically diagnosed fatigue that already had protections. Declared fatigue, self-reported, self-interpreted, unfalsifiable. The institution accepts the assertion as data. Step 3. Shift the burden of proof. No longer must the claimant prove inability to work. The system must prove she is able. Since inability is defined as a feeling, and feelings cannot be externally verified, the burden becomes impossible to discharge. The claimant's word is the evidence. The institution's doubt is the bigotry. Step 4. Subsidize. State power transfers resources from the working to the resting, specifically from male taxpayers to female claimants, under the banner of reparations for emotional labor and structural exhaustion. The transfer is not called welfare, it is called justice. The word matters because the word is the moral license. Step 5, penalize. Male overperformance is recast as toxic productivity, a sign of complicity with the system, a form of microaggression against those who cannot or will not match it. The man who works hard is no longer exemplary. He is suspicious. His effort is evidence of privilege. His excellence is a form of exclusion. Step 6, replace merit. Advancement criteria shift from achievement to care. The person who claims the most exhaustion receives the most accommodation, the most promotion, the most institutional favor, not because she has contributed the most, but because her suffering is the most politically legible. The incentive structure is inverted, effort is penalized, withdrawal is rewarded. The organization selects against competence and for grievance. Step 7, normalize dependency. Female reliance on state subsidy and institutional accommodation becomes the expected baseline. Independence is recharacterized as internalized patriarchy. The woman who works and provides without complaint is said to be suffering from false consciousness. The only authentic response to the system is withdrawal, and withdrawal requires funding, and funding requires the very system the withdrawal claims to resist. The circle closes. The parasite bites the host and calls it revolution. Step 8, erase duty, the concept of obligation to family, to children, to spouse, to community, to God is replaced by the concept of self-care as the highest moral good. You cannot pour from an empty cup becomes the universal solvent of responsibility. Any duty can be declined by invoking depletion. Any commitment can be broken by citing burnout. The word should is pathologized as a symptom of internalized oppression. Step 9, enforce rest quotas, sensitivity requirements, mandatory accommodation policies. The state monitors compliance. Employers who fail to accommodate restorative needs face litigation. Schools that assign too much homework are flagged for causing systemic stress. The machinery of enforcement grows. The machinery of production shrinks. The ratchet only tightens. Step 10, declare the family obsolete. The traditional household is labeled exhausting, a site of extraction rather than love, a labor camp rather than a sanctuary. The state replaces the father as provider. The school replaces the mother as moral authority. The institution replaces the home as the locus of belonging. The family atrophies, the administrative class swells, and the activists celebrate because the family was the last institution that taught duty without requiring a policy memo. The counter-revolution home. The way back is not nostalgia. Nostalgia is sentiment without discipline. The way back is obedience, obedience to what is, to the order written into the world before any ideology tried to overrate it. 10 moves. Each restores a stolen distinction. First, redefine rest as reward for labor, not right of identity. The Sabbath follows 6 days of work, not 6 days of declaration. Rest is earned by contribution and ordered toward renewal for further contribution. Anything else is not rest. It is decay. Second, restore the link between effort and reward. Welfare policy, employment law, educational standards, all must reconnect benefit to contribution, accommodation to evidence, support to demonstrated need rather than asserted identity. The blank check of subjective declaration must be cancelled. Third, apply the same standard of fitness for duty to both sexes. No more two-tier systems, no more asymmetric empathy. If fatigue justifies accommodation, it justifies it for everyone. If withdrawal is acceptable, it is acceptable for everyone. The sex swap test is non-negotiable. Any rule that fails it is not justice but prejudice, wearing justice's clothes. Fourth, penalize performative exhaustion. Institutions must distinguish between genuine incapacity and strategic self-preservation. The person who weaponizes fatigue to avoid accountability is not recovering. She is manipulating. The institution that cannot tell the difference has already been captured. Fifth, restore the father, not merely as provider, as head. The father's authority is not domination, It is order. It is the principle of responsibility. The person who bears the final burden makes the final decision and stands accountable before God and community for the household's direction. A civilization that strips fathers of authority while retaining their obligations is not reforming the family, it is enslaving it. Sixth, teach self-command as the highest virtue, not self-care. Self-care is the vocabulary of the consumer. Self-command is the vocabulary of the soul. The classical tradition, Aristotle's Sophrosyne, Aquinas' temperance, the Stoics' disciplina, understood that the mastered self is the free self. The self that must be soothed, accommodated, and protected from all friction is not free. It is captive, and it is demanding that everyone else join it in the cell. Seventh, require evidence for claims of systemic harm. Structural oppression is a serious charge. It requires serious proof. Disparities are not evidence until alternative explanations have been tested and ruled out. Assertions are not data. Feelings are not findings. The standard of proof must match the severity of the accusation, or the accusation itself becomes tyranny. Eighth, subsidize work, not inactivity. Every dollar directed toward accommodation of withdrawal is a dollar withheld from those who labor. The moral economy must reward contribution, not grievance. This does not mean abandoning the genuinely incapable. It means refusing to manufacture incapacity by rewarding its performance. Ninth, restore duty as moral obligation. Duty is not burden. Duty is the shape that love takes when love is serious. The father who works 2 jobs is not oppressed by duty. He is expressing it. The mother who stays up with a sick child is not drained by the system. She is participating in the oldest and highest form of human love. The language of extraction and depletion is the language of someone who has never understood that sacrifice is not the opposite of joy. Sacrifice is joy's deepest expression. 10th, rebuild the family on complementarity, not equity. Man and woman are not interchangeable units competing for the same score. They are complementary persons ordered toward shared ends. His strength serves her nurture. Her wisdom tempers his boldness. Their differences are not hierarchy, they are design. The family that understands this is unbreakable. The society that forgets it is already broken. It simply has not heard the sound yet. The theory of rest as resistance is not naive. It is not well-meaning. It is not compassion misdirected. It is an instrument of civilizational dismantlement, forged in resentment, wielded by the slothful, blessed by the envious, and enforced by institutions that have forgotten their purpose. Its fruit is everywhere visible, in empty cradles, in fatherless homes, in captured courts, in demoralized men, in credentialed incompetence, in falling churches, in rising bureaucracies, and in the growing silence of those who still remember what it meant to build something that outlasted yourself. But the logos cannot be inverted forever. Reality asserts itself. The question is not whether the correction comes. The question is whether you will be part of it or whether you will be corrected along with the system that tried to repeal nature with a hashtag, stand up, get to work. Build the thing, rest when the day is done, not as resistance, but as recognition that you are a creature, not a cause, and that the world does not need your fatigue, it needs your faithfulness. The ashes of this ideology will fertilize whatever grows next. Let it be wheat, not weeds. Counter-revolution path, the restoration. Practical counter-revolution, the architecture of return the fever breaks when logos returns. What follows is not nostalgia. It is a blueprint for men and institutions who refuse to marinate in grievance any longer. 1. Redefine rest as consequence. Not identity rest is what the body does after labor. It is not a political posture. It is not a gendered claim. It is the rhythm of the natural law. Work, recover, work again. Restore this grammar in every institution. A welfare office that subsidizes inactivity as resistance is not compassionate. It is a parasite feeding on collapse. Tie rest to contribution. Tie comfort to competence. Tie help to honesty. 2. Restore equal law, not equal outcomes. Equal law means the same rule binds the accuser and the accused, the man and the woman, the bureaucrat and the citizen. Abolish the double standard where female fatigue is treated as systemic injury and male fatigue as personal failure. Due process is not optional. It is the architecture of civilization. Evidence before verdict, intent before impact, definition, before accusation, cross-examination, before cancellation. The court that punishes a man for defending himself has inverted the moral map. Restore the map. 3. Defend family integrity against institutional capture. The family is not a provisional arrangement. It is the smallest unit of civilization, older than the state, older than the corporation, older than the NGO. Any institution, school, court, HR department, therapist's office that inserts itself between father and child is performing a seizure, not a service. Fathers are not visitors, mothers are not sovereigns, children are not identity projects. The household is not a courtroom. The state that hates fathers will not raise sons. It will raise inmates, addicts, and consumers. 4. Reconstruct fatherhood as covenant. Not contract fatherhood is not a paycheck. It is not a sperm donation. It is a telos, a purpose, embedded in the structure of being. The patriarchal tradition, stripped of caricature, means the father bears unique responsibility, unique authority, and unique accountability. He is the shield, he is not the scapegoat. Restore the legal presumption of shared parenting. End the family court profit engine that converts conflict into billable hours. End the welfare rules that expel fathers from poor households as a condition of state aid. 5. Protect the unborn as the foundation of futurity. A civilization that cannot reproduce is not a civilization. It is a hospice with better branding. The unborn are not clumps of cells or political burdens. They are the future showing up early. Any ideology that frames pregnancy as oppression is not liberating women. It is extinguishing the lineage that produced them. Abortion is not healthcare. It is the violent endpoint of a sexual ethic that severed sex from responsibility, children from marriage, and women from their own biological reality. 6. Take back education from ideological possession. A school that teaches grievance before grammar is not educating. It is catechizing in a counterfaith. Replace the curriculum of resentment with the inheritance of the West. Logic before slogans, history before guilt, literature before theory, rhetoric before therapy, phonics before pronouns, math before activism. Boys, in particular, are being demoralized by a system designed to pathologize their nature, competition, risk, hierarchy, physicality, directness. Stop medicating boys for being boys. Stop suspending them for playing. Stop grading them on compliance to a feminine behavioral ideal. 7. Restore virtue as self-command. The highest virtue is not self-care. It is self-command. The ancient world understood this. The Christian tradition perfected it. A man who cannot govern his appetites, his attention, his tongue, and his anger is not free. He is a slave wearing a t-shirt that says, "Living my truth." Chastity over pornography, discipline over distraction, duty over comfort, courage over safety, truth over popularity, work over grievance. The ideology of rest as resistance is sloth wearing a halo. Name it, reject it. 8. Rebuild local institutions as fortresses against managerial. Capture the manager class thrives on distance. They govern from spreadsheet and policy memo. They have never met you. They do not know your children's names. They will never attend your funeral. Counter-institutions must be built face-to-face. Local churches that preach logos, not activism. Local businesses that hire on merit, not quota. Local schools that teach canon, not catechism. Local courts that honor fathers. Not extract from them local friendships that hold men accountable to virtue, not to grievance. Local economies that reward production, not complaint. The manager cannot capture what he cannot reach. Build small, build strong, build permanent. 9. Name the ideologies. Then refuse their frame. You cannot defeat what you will not name. The taxonomy is clear. Feminism frames male sacrifice as exploitation and female advantage as justice. Postmodernism severs words from reality and calls the result liberation. Critical theory converts every disparity into evidence of oppression and every solution into expanded bureaucratic control. Cultural Marxism replaces class struggle with identity struggle and calls it progress. Therapeutic culture reclassifies discomfort as harm and accountability as trauma. Wokeness is compassion captured by suspicion and weaponized into control. Naming is not enough. You must refuse the frame entirely. Do not argue inside their inverted map. When they say rest is political, say no. Rest is biological. Politics is what you do when you want to control who rests and who works. Define your terms. Hold the line. 10. Restore the link between logos and civilization. The Western tradition, Greek logic, Roman law, Judeo-Christian revelation is not an accident. It is the inheritance of men who discovered that the universe has structure, that truth is accessible, that justice requires proportion, and that the family is the cradle of civilization's continuity. This inheritance is under active deconstruction, because it is the only thing standing between free men and total managerial control. Defend it, not as nostalgia, as architecture. 11. Demand falsifiability from every claim. If a theory cannot be disproven, it is not a theory, it is a theology. Feminist standpoint epistemology, critical race theories, systemic racism, these are unfalsifiable constructs designed to make dissent impossible. The moment you accept the premise, you've already lost. Ask, what evidence would disprove this? Does this rule apply to both sexes? Who pays for this policy? What was the outcome last time this was tried? Can I question this without being punished? If the answer to the last question is no, you are not in a university, you are in a cult with a syllabus. 12. Rebuild the culture of merit with mercy. Excellence is not exclusion. Standards are not oppression. A civilization that lowers the bar until everyone clears, it has not built equality. It has abolished achievement. But merit without mercy is tyranny. The answer is not egalitarian flattening. The answer is the classical and Christian synthesis. Hold the line on truth, honor excellence, protect the vulnerable, punish the malicious, and extend grace to the penitent. The manager class offers neither merit nor mercy. They offer only compliance. Final maxim, the antidote to ideological insanity, is logos under God. Define your terms, demand evidence, honor fathers, protect children, defend due process, restore the family, reject envy. Name the lie, build the alternative. The fever ends when the host stops feeding it. We have followed the thread to its terminus, and here is the stated goal laid bare: to reframe biological and social fatigue not as a natural signal that the body requires recovery, but as a structural injury inflicted by patriarchal capitalism, thereby dignifying the withdrawal of labor, compliance, and emotional availability as acts of revolutionary defiance. It is a masterpiece of parasitism. It marinades the subject in grievance until every ounce of tiredness becomes proof of oppression, and every demand for contribution becomes proof of abuse. The measured evil of this inversion is exact and surgical. It severs rest from labor, duty from reward, and effort from meaning. It takes the natural rhythm by which men have built every civilization, work, exhaustion, recovery, return, and weaponizes the recovery phase against the worker himself. Female fatigue becomes a permanent disability claim on male provision. Male vitality becomes a resource to be drained, taxed, and apologized for. The family, which depends on the rhythm of mutual contribution, is ruckled and torn because one half is taught that rest is a political right, while the other half is taught that labor is a moral debt. That is not compassion, that is conquest by other means. So here is what I will do today, and what I recommend every man who still carries the logos within him do as well. I will not subsidize a woman's recliner revolution. I will not bankroll her war on her own fatigue while she lectures me about the political virtue of her stillness. In my home, rest follows labor as night follows day. It does not precede effort, it does not replace contribution, and it does not become an identity. He who eats must work. She who rests must have first earned it. I will stop apologizing for my productivity, stop treating my energy as a public utility, and stop accepting the lie that my vitality is a resource she is entitled to drain in the name of her healing. Every claim of exhaustion will meet a simple question: what have you built today? Every declaration of self-care will meet a simple standard: what have you contributed to deserve it? That is not cruelty. That is the restoration of the natural order The grammar of Genesis, the law written into the body itself. A man who will not police this line in his own home has already surrendered the civilization his fathers built with their sweat, their scars, and their silence. Sponsored book, Abolishing Racism and Rewriting the Social Narrative. This book was clawed out of my soul after decades of swallowing male lies like communion wafers made of arsenic. I spent years watching mediocre men steal my ideas in boardrooms, mansplain my own research to me at conferences, and demand gratitude for their half-assed allyship while hoarding power. The final straw came when a male colleague took credit for my breakthrough algorithm, a system designed to calculate the exact carbon cost of male entitlement, then suggested I smile more during his plagiarism celebration. That's when I realized the only language patriarchy understands is loss. Financial loss, social loss, existential loss. So I stopped asking nicely. If you've ever been told you're too emotional, while men weaponize incompetence as a leadership strategy, this book is your guided missile. We'll dissect how male logic is just institutionalized gaslighting, like NASAs, all male teams botching planetary models until a witch's tarot deck fixed their math. You'll learn to tax male oxygen consumption, hex Supreme Court justices with menstrual blood, and replace corporate hierarchies with astrologically vetted covens. For radical femmes ready to bankrupt masculinity through sperm levies and Wall Street hexes, these pages are your blueprint. The data doesn't lie. Societies crumble when men lead. From war stats to climate collapse, their Y chromosomes are genetic malware. My research proves that replacing male CEOs with moon cycle-aligned femmes boosts profits by 300%, and that's before we factor in the karma dividends. You'll weaponize CRT as spiritual warfare, abolish whiteness through clitoral manifestos, and learn why every dollar a man spends is stolen from your ancestral birthright. This isn't theory, it's survival. When Texas banned abortion, my coven melted a senator's hairline. When Silicon Valley tried suppressing our matriarchy index fund, we shorted testosterone futures. The revolution isn't coming, it's invoicing. Your cut? Everything. Abolishing Racism and Rewriting the Social Narrative. Written by Connie Riker. Buy now, links in description.